Hello, I'm Seafood Jonathan Petrie with Atlantic Warriors Wing Chun Kung Fu. This is a particular training we're going to do today on the wall bags. These are wall bags, sometimes referred to as sandbags, but I like to call them wall bags because they can be filled with different material. The common way to think about a wall bag in progression is a beginner would start off with filling the bags with beans. Mung beans are good, but if you don't have access to mung beans, kidney beans, black beans, just a dry bean that you can pick up at any store, like a Walmart type store for inexpensive, that's a good entry level surface or a material to put inside your bag. Other materials are rice. That's also an entry level beginner material to put inside your bag to work into the more dense materials. But beans and rice are a good thing to start out with your sandbag. As you progress, the next level would be sand. Now don't just go out to the beach or somewhere and just dig up a bunch of sand. It may be toxic or something, okay? The best thing to do is get a sanitized sand product. For example, you can go to your local hardware store and get a sanitized play sand, for example, the sand that would go into a sandbox for a child. It's been sanitized, it's a good sand, and that's what you want to buy. I would get your typical, I think it's a 50-pound bag perhaps, or some 25-pound bags, and depending on how many sections you have to fill, that'll tell you how much sand you want. So if you have a single section sandbag, of course less sand is needed. A double section more, and then a 3-section sandbag, you want to get more of the 50-pound bag. Okay, you're going to use that sand. Also, when you use your sandbags, as you hit the sandbag, you're probably going to lose a little sand over time. So if you have some sand in a bag that you got from the hardware store left over, don't just throw it away, but store it away so that you can replenish the sandbags, the wall bags, with your sand product. Okay, so as it comes out, sweep it up, and then over time you can put that sand to good use that you have left over. Well, I want to talk about the sandbag and the setup of the apparatus for your home. If you live in a house or in a place where you can put a sandbag, you want to think about first where to put it. A lot of times they are in the garage. If it's in the garage, great. If it's in a room in your house, maybe a bedroom, an extra spare bedroom or something, fantastic. If you come over here, I'd like for you to see how this is set up. This is a very good, solid way to set up your sandbag. What we have here is a piece of 2x4, a piece of plywood and a 2x4. And this gives the weight, this is very heavy, all three of these bags. This is very heavy. You need a solid anchor to hold this set of bags up. As you notice, these eyelets here, they're not 16 inches wide, so they can't go into the studs. You want to anchor this into the studs, but you can't just by the width of the eyelets. The studs are actually out here. A lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times in American homes, the studs are 16 inches on center. So if you got your tape measure out, 16 inches from here to here. And as you see, there's a series of screws going into the studs on one side and on the other side. So that way you put your plywood material in the studs securely. That's step one. Step two is the 2x4 here. You want to cut the 2x4 the same width as your plywood. Okay, and as you can see, this is a 3-section bag. So I have a piece of plywood that accommodates the bag all the way down its length and gives me room up here. Okay, so that way the drywall behind is protected from putting a hole through the drywall. This material, the plywood, is absorbing the force, absorbing the energy that makes it through the sand into the drywall. So that's one of the first steps, okay, is purchase this material, the plywood, and a 2x4, okay? You can even get some scrap 2x4s for maybe a friend that did a project or something to save costs, okay? So now, step 2, drill pilot holes into drill a pilot hole to make the screw go in easy. Drill pilot holes into the 2x4, measure that off, and then take this 2x4 and screw it into the plywood. A little detail here, make sure when you put the plywood up that you don't put screws where the 2x4 would go. In other words, there's a screw up here, and then the next screw is down here to give room for these 3 screws and these 3 screws. See, I left a gap, so this area right here can have its own screws, all right? Very important. Now, that's the second step. Third step, get you nice, thick bolts, 2 thick bolts, and mark them out. The width here, very top of the eyelets, right here, you just take a pencil and mark that little space, where these bolts are going to go, and then take the bag off, or remove the bag, and drill a pilot hole down at an angle, not straight in, but down at an angle, like these 2 bolts down at an angle, to give you a better anchor. Okay, so then you take a ratchet and you ratchet your big bolts down in to the 2x4, and it will also go through the 2x4 into the plywood. Okay, so that's the final step of this apparatus, the anchoring system. Next, you take sand and you fill each bag with sand, fill it up tight, and a lot of sand, and then zip it up. You probably will have a zipper on the back. Each bag will, and these have Velcro on the back, okay? So that's the next step, and then you hang your sandbag, all right? As you hit the sandbag, it will sink and it will fall a little bit because of gravity, and that's what it does. And so it'll look one way in the beginning, and it'll just barely change a little bit over time. There's different sandbags. There's canvas sandbags, and then there's also, this is a synthetic leather that I can take because it's a forced spool, and I can take a nice wipe and wipe these down and sanitize them after class. It's fantastic. For your personal use, you could just use canvas if you want. It's a lot less expensive as well. So that's an initial setup of the apparatus. The next thing I want to do is talk about setting you up as your body and your structure and getting ready for this, okay? So here we go. I'm going to get first even and centered with the bag. Hoi ma into Yichi Kim Young Ma. Next step is put a palm out into the center of the bag. If I'm too far away, my body will shift like this and turn. You don't want that. If I'm too close, I'll be cramped. You want to be like Goldilocks. You want to be just right. With my shoulders square. So now I have my distance. I want to put my fist vertically on the bag. You want 3 knuckles. Bottom 3 knuckles, 1, 2, and 3. Bottom 3 knuckles on the bag. Bottom 3 knuckles on the bag. The top knuckles should not even be touching. Okay? And that's how we get set up. The next video, we're going to be talking about how to properly strike the bag to develop you and your power and relaxed power. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon in the next video.